Hey everyone, so glad that you're here. My name is Mary Lynch with Braving Midlife Discussions. This week's discussion is authentic living. How do you know when you're living an authentic life, and defining what you want? You know, a lot of times when we are going through our lives or growing through our lives, we take on what other people think we should be doing. Your parent, you're a family member, a loved one, your boss, somebody might think, "Oh, I think you should be doing this with your life. I think you should do you look, you're so good at this. I think you should do that." When in reality, you've got this fire burning inside of you that wants to manifest something totally different. So, in today's midlife discussion, we're going to take a look at uncovering the parts of us that will help to define our true selves, our authentic selves, so that we can then show up, as that person that's really inside of us, instead of when we say yes, when we really want to say no, instead of going along with the crowd when we'd really like to be doing something else or be someplace else. So authentic living takes into a whole lot of different aspects of our lives, which I'm going to try and kind of slice them all up and take a little bit of a deeper dive into each aspect of ourselves. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a human behavioral expert. So what that means is that I take a look at who you are at your core. And a lot of times people will refer to this as, how did you know that about me? Or I feel like you've looked in my underwear drawer and picked out the dirty pieces or the soiled ones. How did you know that? Well, quite honestly, there are four main behavioral types, and in some behavioral types will get swayed differently, but differently from others. Sometimes we will push against instead of attract the things that we want in our lives. So I'm going to go over each of those. We're going to talk about values, how important values are, and making sure that those values are your values and not the values of someone else that's near to you, that you think, "Oh, they're cool. I want to do what they're doing." Oftentimes, that will kind of take us down a path that leads us to living a life that really isn't joyful for us or fulfilling to us. We're going to take a look at where our passions are, because passions, if we stay in our passion zone, a lot of times it will lead to finding purpose in your life because you are so filled with joy about doing something. We're going to take a look at the relationships that you have, not only with yourself, but with others, and which ones are true, which ones you need to release and let them go find somebody else to go hang out with. Which ones do you want to hold on dear to and you want to nurture? And what stops you? Like, what stops you from being authentic? What stops you from being true to yourself? And do you notice? So I often talk about, if you've been following me at all, I often talk about the pause. It's the pause that makes all of the difference. And I talk about that a lot. I want to try and get you there by the end of today's session. So let me dive right into it. Let's talk about defining your strengths. So mainly there are, and this comes from ancient times, the ancient philosophers who were the observers of life. So you might think of strengths as observable behaviors. You can observe them you can observe your own behaviors as well as others can observe you. And people might say that, oh, you're like this, or oh, you're so outgoing, for instance, or oh, gee, you're awful shy, or you're really pushy. So the four main types of behavioral styles are someone that's you might think of them as a go-getter, somebody that is always moving fast, always on to the next thing, always coming up with new and more and better ideas, like all the time they've got to be working on something. Oftentimes they find it difficult to rest or relax or go on vacation, or sometimes they're quick to anger. Sometimes they might be hard to get their attention. Like they're in the same room with you, but you feel like they're not really paying attention to what you're talking about. So, and listen, when you watch a sitcom, your favorite sitcom is all about these four behavioral styles, because we're each of us are going to connect with a different person, and we need all of these people in our lives to make great fulfilling relationships. But pick the one strength that speaks to you, the one strength area that speaks to you. The next type of person or behavioral style or strength is somebody that's outgoing, somebody that you like to hang out with at a party, or somebody that you like to follow along with at a party, kind of like the life of the party. Somebody that can always think of conversation, something that to talk about with people. And you might struggle with that. So oftentimes I will find myself hanging out with somebody that's a conversation starter, somebody that always likes to meet new people, even standing in line at coffee. They'll strike up a conversation with somebody. Well, you'll be standing there like a deer in headlights. So is that you, the conversation starter? The outgoing one, refer to that person oftentimes as the cheerleader. And what about the person that is helpful, like the empath, the person that wants to listen to your stories, the person that is there for you, that can help you when you fall, is the one. I often think of this person as maybe like a sheepdog, the one that makes everybody feel better. Are you that person? It's a great idea to stay in our strengths, to play in our strengths, because other people, if we allow other people to play in their strengths, then we can build these great communities around ourselves. And then the fourth type of person is a person that is analytical. And, I'm not that person for sure. I have a daughter that's like that. And sometimes she's so analytical. They're black and white people. I kind of live in the gray zone, right? So sometimes it's difficult to have a lengthy conversation with her, because she's not a conversationalist. She's a black and white, excuse me, she's a black and white kind of person. It doesn't make this good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is, how do you relate to other people? If you are, for instance, a black or white person, a person that likes to live by rules, that likes to follow rules, then how do you feel when you're around others that don't like to follow rules, that kind of fly by the seat of their pants? Like, how do you feel around them? It's so great to begin to notice who you are in relationship to others and who you are in relationship to yourself. Like, once you understand who you are, then you know that you can play in your strengths. You don't have to succumb to the way that somebody else is. You don't have to mimic somebody else's way of being if that's not where your strengths lie. And if you can define your strengths. So for me, in defining myself, I am an idea person. I am always like, almost like ahead of myself, always like ahead of myself. But I like to do things through and with people. So, for me, for instance, in moving to a foreign country, I knew that I needed to find girlfriends. I knew that it was important to have a tribe of people around me, of women around me that I could call on, that I could hang out with when I felt lonely or separated, that I could turn to in times of need. Now, that's not the analytical person, right? That analytical person might be somebody that would rather be alone, that would rather work alone and hang out alone or do things alone, more like a real homebody type of a person. So I knew in moving to Europe that I needed to find my friends. I needed to find my girlfriends. So that was important to me. It doesn't mean that that's going to be important for everybody else. Hello, Lorelei. So it just means that that's important to me. That's my strengths. So when we play in what our strengths are, then we tend to flourish, for instance. We tend to live a life of more joy and passion. So if you can, over this week, take a look at where your strengths are, not what somebody else is telling you they are, but things like, it might be taking a look at the things that you really like to do or things that come easy to you. That will help you to define what strength is to you, where you feel secure, where you feel like you're thriving. And if you can then define what that means to you so that all of this that I'll be talking about today is so that you can stay true to your authentic being and not try and do something or be something for somebody else that isn't true to you. Now, once we take a look at our strengths, then we can take a look at our values. And I think a lot of times that taking a look at our values is hard for people because we tend to want to do the right thing when we're looking at values. Like if I ask people what's important to you, the first thing out of their mouth is family. When in reality, it might not really be family. It might be something that's important, something that you value, might be, for me, for instance, freedom is my number one value. It doesn't mean that I don't value my family and that I don't honor my family and love my family. What it means is that freedom of where I live, of how I live, who I get to spend time with, how I get to spend time with my time and when time with other people, that is the most precious thing for me. So in defining your values and what is it that you give meaning to, like what, especially as we age, as we age, things get a kind of a little bit more interesting. And I think as women, we go through a lot of different cycles. And I've been talking about this a lot lately with my friends and my husband and my kids, because I just came back from this 2-month trip to the US where I was around my daughters. And one of my daughters said, "So what's going to happen to you when you die?" And I was like, actually, that's a great question. Like, I live in a foreign country. Now, not that I can predict where or when I'm going to die. I could die. I could, die on a plane. I could die sitting next to one of my daughters. I could die on the beach in the Mediterranean. Like, where am I going to die? But the question that she had for me was, what does that look like? And so in order to make her feel comfortable and give meaning to that, I love your hair, Linnell. I had to get her in alignment with what my values were to me, and that didn't mean that I was any less than, that I took my relationship any less than, but it was a great conversation to have with her about how I wasn't going to sit around and wait to die, right? The value in my life of freedom is so important to me, that having that meant that I was going to show up in life in a more authentic way. And I think that by allowing her to understand what my values were, and her knowing where what drives me, what my drivers are in life, then we could have this open discussion about how I was defining my life. That just because I chose to live in a different country, that in no way meant that I loved her less. Actually, I look at that as an act of love, that I chose me, that I chose me over allowing myself to live an unauthentic life, that I got to define who I was and what I wanted, and I was going to step into that. And sometimes it's if you don't keep a check on it, if you're not on board with it, if you don't understand your strengths or your values, then you can end up in judgment and criticism of yourself, feeling shameful, guilt-ridden, less than, all of these things that bring us down or hold us back, instead of move us forward and living an authentic life, and being able to define what we want by understanding our strengths, what drives us, and our values, to what keeps us going on this path of being creative and adventurous and confident and innovative or bold or inspiring for ourselves. Like, all of those things I want to do for myself, and hopefully that will trickle down to how my kids view me, or how the other people around me view me. But I get to define that. I don't. It's other people can say, "Oh, you're really good at whatever." that doesn't mean that I need to take that on and put that first. I'm a grandmother. I'm an aunt. I'm a wife. I'm many things. I'm a business owner. I'm many things, but where my strengths lie and what my values are what get to define the person that I am and that I get to portray. So Linnell and Lorelei, what do you feel like where your strengths are? What would you like begin to define yourself by? Or how do you see yourself stepping into if you were to look at your life as if you could put authentic before everything that you said, what then would you say about yourself?
I liked how you said about your daughter, what does life mean to you, the mom? And instead of like my personality, blow up or this or that or ignore or passive aggressive, I like the idea that you needed to show her what your values are. So communication. And then it gave her comfort, and it kind of defined you too, made you say your values. And so I guess communication for me would be a big communication, and relationships, I guess, would be like you said, freedom. I got that. Mm-hmm. So communication, relationships, and in the sense of the relationship, like I'm kind of driven by my family, but I don't want to be driven by them and their goals and what they're doing. Like, my family moves here and there, and I don't know. I don't want to spend a week driving there and visiting them, So I guess my strengths would be I feel like I'm still pretty young, but getting older, slowing down, but still. And gosh, I just feel like I could blossom if I retired. I only work 1 day a week, but it's this heavy thing on me. And my girlfriend just showed me all these pictures of how she volunteered in Yosemite at the Sierra Club visitor section in Yosemite. Had a blast. And I said, well, why not? That's something I would love to do. And in the picture, it looked like she wasn't wearing a bra, and she's big. And I thought, that girl went hippie.
We can do those kind of things.
So anyhow, I guess my value would be the being able to talk in a relationship, and I forget the other one, but anyhow, there is a future out there for me.
I know that.
There was a guy I worked with yesterday, and he said, oh, I've been here for 30 years. I said, Tommy, we need to get out of here. And he said, no, I'm gonna, this and that. I said, we need to get out of here. And he said, well, maybe. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but anyhow, the values, I think we're still young enough and creative, like you were saying. And I do like freedom.
I think that, you know, the past couple of weeks, I've been around people that have been in their 40s, people that have been in their 60s, and people that have been in their 80s. And I see this kind of like life transition of the expectations that people are putting on themselves instead of defining themselves by their strengths and by their values. They're defining themselves by the image that they see of somebody else or a friend and it makes life heavy. And I don't want life to be heavy. I want it, and not that I want to turn a blind eye to, age. I'm not saying that I'm not going to age, but I in stepping into the, like the next age. So, I'm about to launch a new website, and for years the name of my website has been Braving Midlife. And I was, for some reason, I don't know why this was, but I started researching the word midlife. I thought, what age group are we when we're in midlife? Somebody said something to me, that I was too old to be in midlife. And I was like, what? So I looked up the definition of midlife in the dictionary, and it is 35 to 60. And after 60, it's called the golden years. And you know what? I'm sorry, but I just don't, I don't, I don't go. So what I'm going to be, am I going to be the golden girls? Like, I'm not I'm not ready for that. So, I feel like when I looked at that, I was like, oh my gosh, now do I have to change the name of my website because I'm going to be 67 in September? Like, am I not, am I sending the wrong message? Like, like what am I supposed to do? And I thought, she says, honest to God, this is where I went back to my authentic living and defining what I want. Like, my definition of midlife is I get to feel the way that I feel is I'm in midlife. I'm not in the golden years. I might be that way up to a definition in the dictionary, but I don't want to be defined by what that looks like or sounds like.
So I ask you then, why even use midlife? Because that is something to everyone. It might be different than what you think it is, but people will have that in their mind, whatever it is.
That's funny that you say that, Linnell, because one of my clients, I have a picture on my website of all these three white-haired women in a picture, in an image. And she said to me, she's just turning 50, and she said to me, I don't like that picture on your website. I think it depicts the wrong image of who your client is, because it's not her. And I was like, well, that image really speaks to the person that I wish to be. Like, I want to be, hi, Stacy, I want to be that alive. I want to be that joyful and that passionate.
Mm-hmm.
So when I speaking to what you mentioned, Linnell, the reason that I put midlife on my website name was because I wanted that age group. I wanted to define that age group in the name of my business. But now I'm older than that. So, does what now, what does that mean? Do I need to change? Do I need to change things up? What do I need to do? Terry, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I just want to say I'm 74, and I walk 2 miles a day. I go to the gym all the time. I have my marbles. I'm retired, but I am not the Golden Girls either. Okay. I look at that TV
Amen.
show, old ladies being roommates because they can't afford their own place, and they're struggling, and they're just getting old, and they're going to die any minute. And that is not who I feel like I am at all. And so I have all these, what I was going to add to this discussion is that dictionary needs to be updated, because modern science, I'm taking a statin, I'm taking a blood thinner, and I'm taking a blood pressure pill. And it's like the doctors give you these miraculous medicines and say, go on and live your life. And then you come back to a world that wants to define you as about to die any minute. So it is a weird kind of lack of structure to what we're doing now. And I think that, those reference points that we go to try to figure this out are outdated. So I think we have to make it up as we go along.
Okay.
But I'm here at these meetings because I want to figure out how to do that.
And Terry, you know what? You are strong and vibrant and active, but you are not midlife, right? So
by definition.
By definition,
yeah, I agree with you.
If you saw something that said midlife women come to an event, would that catch your eye and you'd say that's me if there was nothing else?
No, because I would figure it would be aimed at people who are sedentary.
Right.
And that is not
midlife. Really?
Even midlife, it's
wow.
It's aimed at an age group that is less than the previous age groups to me.
Because midlife to me, it wouldn't catch my eye, because I see what I mean about everyone's got something in their mind about what it is. For me, it would be a 55-year-old woman whose children are now going into college, and she now wants to change careers.
Okay.
Sort of in my mind.
Yeah, I would not be here if it wasn't for someone recommending this site. The midlife thing did not catch my eye. It was somebody recommending this site that I trust.
So, I mean,
Stacey, I see that you unmuted yourself. I know you have a lot to say about this.
Well, I do, because I'm the 53 midlife. and Mary showed me her proposed website, and it had a bunch of ladies, and I said, it's not, to me, it's not like Terry says, age is a number. It's how we feel on the inside, even if we have health issues or whatever it is. And I remember, even with the midlife, I'm like, I'm not there yet. Although I was in that bracket, I was like, I'm not there yet. But now I think she's kind of gone to the other direction, and not in all of them, but that one picture is one photo. And I said, you're going to be discontinuing conversations with women who are in this bracket. And I think everybody 50 plus over who is engaged in this type of group is looking for growth. They're being active. Yeah, they're doing things. They're trying to educate. They're trying to be inspired and inspire others. How you capture that? I think you've done a pretty good job. I love you guys haven't seen Mary's website yet, but I love it, her colors and everything. And so now it's just going to have that authentic conversation to continue through, because in my own practice, I'm attracting now older women. I used to attract teenagers and 20 somethings, and I'm not anymore. I'm starting to attract women 30 to 60. I'm a psychotherapist and women's coach. And I just see women, one phase closes and another phase opens. One closes, another thing opens. And it's so exciting. It's exciting to even be here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary, what are you calling, if you're closing your midlife, facing midlife, what are you opening? What's the name of what you're launching?
Oh, well, I wasn't going to change the name of it. But then but I don't know. I'm constantly like researching stuff. Like I'm a real wordsmith, and I love etymology, like the study of where words came from. So I was doing some work on midlife and just wanted to, like my birthday's coming up, and I was like, oh, geez, I wonder what midlife is. And then when I saw that it ended at 60, I was like, well, shit, I'm way past that. So, and then the next best thing was golden. And I was like, well,
No.
like you can't go from midlife, you can't go from 60 to golden. Like maybe we did 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Maybe we went from 60 to you're dead or above ground, but
And Mary, I think you have just hit the nail on the head in my mind of one of the biggest challenges that we have when we leave our traditional career, or you want to call it retire, or you want to call it midlife, whatever you want to call it, it is and I'm speaking for myself, and I know I'm not alone, but the way we were raised, and as a psychologist or the psychoanalyst person here, Stacy, all of the paradigms that we developed growing up from seeing the way culture was, from seeing what was the way life went, I didn't have a role model for a strong woman mother, right? She didn't like to work outside the home. That was always a terrible thing. She didn't want to have a career. And when she got to be 65, whatever, it's like she didn't change. She just kind of ran the home. So, and at that time, growing up in the 80s, when we start our career, it wasn't about family life and balance. It was about, you do not let your family interfere with your work. You do not show your emotions. You do not show femininity. In the 80s, you had to be the way you had to be to succeed, which was on the male side. It was never about what you wanted, right?
That was a very accurate, yes, description. I was in my 30s at that time growing up. Yeah.
Exactly. So when now we retire, or now we are in an environment where we can do what we want, for my part, I didn't know how to figure that out. Because I had spent decades doing and being what I had to be. And so it was always looking outside of me for how I was going to be. And I think, Mary, you mentioned something about now people are looking on Facebook. What should I be? How should, I should be happy. I should, because you're seeing all this, because we're used to looking outside ourselves for how we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to be. It's hard. And I think we're all here in some form or capacity, because I'm working with women I am not a psychotherapist. I am not any licensed anything, but I went through hell when I left my work, and I finally worked through it. And it's like there was no help out there, right? There wasn't a Mary. There wasn't a me. Bold Women is the name of what I'm doing. And now there are quite a few, but I think if you'll look at a lot of the Facebook groups and what you find out there, a lot of it is whiny, and it's not people who mentioned, was it Stacy mentioned, we want to grow, we want to learn, we want to keep expanding ourselves. And that's not what I'm finding a lot of groups out there. So I've taken a lot of airspace, and I'm sorry, but this is exactly because we don't know how,
That's right.
And
because we don't take the time though, Linnell.
You have to take the time.
Yes.
But the challenge I'm finding with so many women is that they have been successful in their career, strong, successful people coming to them, and then they leave, and it's, like a double whammy. You are now don't know how, and you have to admit, I don't know how, where you have always had the answers. And now you not only don't know what to do, you have to admit it to someone to go figure it out. It's it's a lot to unpack. And I'll turn the mic over.
Lorelei, go ahead.
Oh, back to Terry and back about the title. I really think I was in a meeting yesterday, and all the older people, myself, in the meeting, we gave teaching, we gave wisdom, we gave insight. So I think we're moving into kind of like a teaching wisdom kind of area of our life. But back to my friend, No Bra, volunteering in Yosemite, and back to what you said about authenticity and constantly rechecking, you know, like for the last week, I feel like I had more frown lines. And I thought, what's making me frown so much? I had to check what's going on. But I think that when we're authentic, like you were saying, and keep checking our values and being true to ourselves, then we take that picture in Yosemite and send it to my girlfriend, me, and it makes me more authentic. It makes me, grounded. So I think that we really, as leaders, as vision, wisdom, I think we have a responsibility in ourselves to be authentic so that people can see that and they're authentic too. I think there's a term, there's a company called Off the Mat Yoga, Off the Mat and Into the World.
Yes.
I think that's what we need to do. We have to get off that mat and go into the world, retire, or like Lynette says, get there, be wise and teachers. That's my thought.
I think that's awesome, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's, again, it gets back to understanding who you are at your core. Like, what really makes you, what really checks all your boxes, what makes you happy, what makes you feel confident, what makes you feel good about yourself, and staying there, playing there, being there. Because once we start to veer off that and become somebody else, for instance, for me, that would be staying in the US, because that's where my daughters and grandkids are. Like, I would be a different person if I was there, because first of all, I feel that there's no right place for me, because I have family in Maine, Idaho, and California. So where do I live? If I were to go there, where do I live? I'm not going to make
more than one kid.
Right? I'm not going to, not everybody is going to be happy. So I'm going to piss somebody off somewhere along the line. So if I'm out of the country, I feel like I don't have to worry about that. Stacy, so Stacy, just to let you know, I don't know if you've ever met Linnell before, but Linnell has a home in France. Stacy has a home in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Istanbul. So Stacy is in that limbo stage of what she has a teenage daughter. So what, like what's next for her. So you guys would have a lot to talk about. But Stacy, did you have something that you wanted to add to all of this?
Well, I think, you talk about that negativity that's out there, and we know that is what the schematics of Instagram algorithms, Facebook algorithms are after. We know that China does a very different thing with their algorithms with the same software. And so I think it's really important that we do showcase those moments that are hard and how we overcome them. And this weekend, I did a 5-week trip to Turkey, and I did a tour with my daughter. We ended up on this crazy hiking tour that we thought it was going to be walk and drink chai. And it was not that. It was trekking mountains with goats, and it was crazy. So I wrote about it. I put my newsletter and I wrote what happened to us and what happened to me. And I literally thought I was going to have a heart attack. And, we're on a mountain in tennis shoes when we should have had full on hiking gear in 6 degrees, going from the Mediterranean Sea to all of a sudden this. But I wrote about the experience. Yesterday, I had 2 clients that I hadn't heard from in a long time write and say, hey, I'd really love to resume sessions with you. I didn't write anything about, hey, come see me. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Mary's been telling me this for a long time. Just write. And so I just wrote my experience, and I had two former clients that were good clients said, hey, I want to come back to you. And I think that's just it. And I think that it's important for us to show those. I love that word, the teaching wisdom modality off the mat into the world. Like, I'm writing these down because they're such great phrases. And it's hard to find women in the 50s bracket. It's hard to find women in the 60s bracket, the 70s bracket, who are continuing on and are inspiring, and it is hard to capture it in a title to engage. I'm struggling with it too. I'm going to rename my business because I don't want to stay in psychotherapy anymore. And it was a midlife change. I was in corporate sales for 20 years, did midlife change. And now I'm realizing in my 50s, I don't want to be doing psychotherapy. I hate insurance. I hate all of that stuff that comes with it. I want to be doing more learning of what I know about and what my experience is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I'm a survivor of childhood trauma, but I'm also a woman who's had I've had businesses that were successful. I've had a successful career in corporate America. I have a great kid. I have a good marriage, and I have shit days too. Pardon my French. So it all comes together that way. Yeah.
Yes. And in that, and having all of that stuff, is making sure that we are playing in our strengths, making sure that we're not listening to this dialogue that's going outside of us, making sure that, I'm here in Poland where we've got, the name for grandmother is babcia, and the image that babcia represents is a little old lady with a kerchief on her head tied under. That's when you say babcia, they don't look at me. And when I do workshops here, I did a workshop for a high school. I don't usually work with high school kids, but I did this as a test for myself to see if I liked it, to see if I was relevant to high schoolers. And it was a really cool experience, actually. But when I stood up in front of this group of, it was 95 girls, 95 junior and senior high school girls, and said, I'm the age of your babcia. I'm 66 years old. And, everyone was like, oh, my babcia doesn't look like that. So, I wanted, the reason why, like this conversation is being had is because I run across these things and I just want to talk, I want to talk about them. I want to make sure that, I'm not the only one out there that is, I want a different image for myself. I want to look at a,
you want to change the culture, the paradigm of what it is to be a senior woman.
And yes, and I don't like the word pro age either. Like what I know, Jamie Lee Curtis has tagged that as pro age, and I'm like, well, that's I don't know, that's just sounds like bullshit to me. Like that's just like, I just don't know what to say. Like, nor do I feel it necessary to do a naked photo shoot. like
Oh my goodness.
I've seen that a lot lately, and I don't
That's
know
a
what that's
whole
about.
different hour. But I want to say something, Mary, because what you have just described is kind of what I was attempting before I kind of got on my rant. The fact that they were aghast, the teenagers were aghast that you were 66 years old, right?
Yeah.
Is that they didn't have a role model. And so if that had continued, they would find themselves 66 years old with in their soul, right? What a bubchuck, like they were now bubchucks, if I'm saying that correctly. But you have now given them something that counters that reality. And I think that's what has to happen. And it's not going to happen in our generation. What I think we need to really be focused on is changing the paradigm for what it is to be 66 years old and what the possibilities are,
what the possibilities are.
Kind of
Terry?
continue to do that, because I think we're kind of unconsciously doing that already, but with more direction and more, like seeking each other out for ideas and going on with it, because I think we've already changed the paradigm.
My mother has had a restaurant. It's been in the family. It was in the family for over 60 years, but she sold it this year. She worked until she was 80. My grandmother, her mother, worked in the same restaurant until she retired at close to 70. I don't know any different. And so this has been my father is 83 and he still does mounted shooting events, meaning he rides on the horse around with barrels and shoots the balloons. And he and his wife, she's broken her hip, they've broken all ribs, they just keep going. Every time they're more busy than I am. And I think it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring because even as I was on this tour and everybody, and of course I enhance my hair. So I think that helps with age. But everybody was shocked that somebody in their 50s was doing the tour. And I'm thinking, really? Like,
wow.
Just in my 50s. And they're like, oh, I can't believe you're here. And the tour guide said, you're my mother's age. And I said, fabulous. Would she be out here? And he said, no.
And that's Turkey, right? So that's a whole different cultural thing. It's like the cultural thing that I deal with here.
Absolutely.
Is making sure that I'm
age and nobody, no makeup, no nothing.
Right. Making sure that I'm staying true to my values, that I understand where my strengths lie, and that I'm not looking at what somebody else has defined for me or wants or thinks that I should be living like or looking like. Like for instance, when I go to the chiropractor, and we have chiropractors here in Poland. My dad was a chiropractor. My brother, my first husband, was a chiropractor, so I'm used to going to chiropractors. So, but in America, you have to keep your clothes on. So I went to the chiropractor here, and I walk into the office, and he's like, well, I'm getting ready to go and lay on the table. And he's like, well, you got to take your clothes off. And I was like, well, what does that mean exactly? And he was like, well, I have to feel your body. Like, how am I going to feel your spine if I can't get to it? Like, take your clothes off. And I was like, well, okay, so where? And he was like right here. Like, take, like, I've seen it before. He's like, whatever it is, I've seen it. Just take it. You can leave your bra and panties on, but take it off. And I thought, oh fuck, like, seriously? And I did, and my husband was with me. My husband was in the room, and he said to my husband, how old is she? And he was like 66, and he goes in Polish, like, damn, she's my mother's age. She looks great. Then I, wanted to like, then I went home and wanted to work out some more in authentic living. And then it's relationships, right? What relationships are we holding on to because of what somebody else thinks we're supposed to hold on to, or how it's supposed to look at this age, whatever that age is for us. Yes, Stacy.
I have a question. So my mother-in-law is Turkish. She dresses so cute. She has a very young face. I think she's she's 70, close to 70. And last year she had cataract surgery, and then they did LASIK surgery. So she wore glasses her entire life. Then she came here and the hairdresser put some highlights. She looked fabulous. She went back to Turkey and everybody told her how old she looks now because she doesn't wear her glasses anymore. They told her to start dressing differently. And I almost see it as sort of that enmeshment of pulling her back into that system of you can't be different. I'm wondering if any of you have experienced anything like that, because it's been very interesting just to observe.
Yeah, I will say, number one, that glasses help, right? Because it hides some of the things. So glasses do help as far as appearance sometimes, right? That being said, I think that one of the hardest things about change is when you change, other people have to change in order to accept you. And when they start feeling uncomfortable, they're pushing back. So I think that's what's happened. It's the discomfort that they have wanting to keep everything the same. So yes, that's what I think is happening. Exactly.
And again, I think that's why it's important for us even more at this age in our life to be able to take a look at, are we being authentic to who we are? Like, do I feel good? Do I feel hot, sassy, sexy? I was just, right before I got on this call, I was writing a blog. I do guest blogging, and I was writing a blog about the things that we carry around with us. Take it or leave it is the name of the blog. And I was writing about those things that we carry around with us that we allow to define us if we don't check it at the door. And especially as we age, making sure that we're defining what that age is for us, and not being afraid. Like, how do you do that? And that's why I think that talking about playing where your strengths are, so that you are able to grow, you're able to keep passion in your life because you're playing where your strengths are. And that
awareness, yeah,
right, and that you are aware of what your values are, so that you're not listening to the other noise that is happening around us. And it takes responsibility, right? And I think a lot of times maybe this is just a woman thing, that it's easy to let ourselves down. It's easy to say, oh, I got to go take care of, I got to go do this, I should be over here, instead of taking a look at where we play, what drives us, where the values that we hold near and dear, and taking responsibility for those.
Yeah, boundaries and
Right?
That
Because people
self-awareness,
have
staying
other
true.
ideas, like you were saying, Stacy. People have other ideas of what our life is supposed to look like. And we, on the other side of the coin, are trying really hard to define what it looks like for us and not look at the images that we have that are shown to us of what it's supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going back to what Stacy said too, of her mother-in-law going back, she was now not what she was supposed to have been, right, when she returned. And that was the pressure coming back at her for she had changed. And I think what you're describing, Mary, is we have to stay true to what we value, who we are, what we know to be true about ourselves. But then now we're feeling that coming back to us, whether we go out and take care of this person or that person, that is the same kind of situation of feeling that pressure to not be who we are or to change, to conform.
Yeah.
And not only conform, I think feel bad about yourself for being different now or not being like everybody else.
Well, yeah, you feel bad and you don't want to feel bad, so you conform, right? You don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's that discipline. I think Mary mentioned discipline, to be aware of when that starts to happen, when you're feeling that, and understand what you're feeling. Is that feeling bad because you're not conforming, and to stand firm? That's
the
hard as
hamster
hell.
wheel. That's the hamster wheel that we have to stay off. Because
Mhm.
once you get on it,
It's like this, you get into like a spin cycle in the washing machine, right?
yes,
You get on this and you can't stop. You can't peel yourself off the wall of the washer. And I hate to do this, but I have to go. This has been so, yeah, this has been so engaging. Thank you, Mary.
good. I'm glad.
Mary.
Thank you for participating. Stacy, thank you for hanging out with us. Lorelei, as always, thank you for coming and joining us. So next week, I can't remember what next week's topic is. I've got it written down somewhere, but you'll see it in a message coming in. Yes, Lorelei.
Can I just add one more thing before we go?
Of course.
I feel that as humans, we all want to belong. We want to be in a family, a relationship, we want to belong. And a good example is I went to this meeting yesterday, and it's a very final meeting. I had a foster kid that went back to her mom. And, it was very formal in the courts and stuff. But, we all wanted to give to this kid advice and this and that and everything. And like we all kind of held back, but then we kind of said what we wanted to say. And then the mom said what she wanted to say. And it gave affirmation to me that, yeah, that kid was kind of shitty, but it's like we didn't want to say anything. We wanted to belong in this, oh, great, she's moving on and stuff. But I think that, I said to myself, no, I need to say what I need to say. And I left feeling like I didn't belong in that group. But I said to myself, well, who cares? Who cares? Do I really need that security of belonging? Or like that girl said about the washing machine? Like I said to myself, like, it's okay. It's okay. She's leaving. It's okay. I gave advice, because they kept looking at me because she had lived with me for so long. And it's just like, we want to belong, but I think that we really need to stand up and be authentic to ourselves,
But in that belonging, we can define our own tribe, but we can't define our own tribe until we define what we want. Because if we just go along with anybody that shows up, that's when we're going to lose ourselves and be untrue to who we really are. So yet again, it keeps cycling back to understanding who we are at our core. What drives us? What brings us joy? How do we and how do we know when we're joy filled? How do we know when we're in our sweet spot of life, of doing things, and like having those boundaries, like and being okay with it, being okay with saying no, being okay with letting go, being okay with letting go. And I think that's a perfect description of what you were able to do yesterday, was say what you needed to say so that you could let go and know that this doesn't have to be your tribe. Like, we don't have to hold on to things or people for dear life, that we can actually, if we are authentic to ourselves, that we can go out and build our own tribe of people that champion us and that want the best for us, instead of people that are going to hold us back, pull us back into the basket, or pull us back down and pretend that we're happy in that space. Like, I don't want to pretend anymore. I really think that being true to who I am, and letting everybody know who that person is, whether it feels uncomfortable or not. Like, how can we stand up and be authentic to ourselves so that we can shine that light for other people by living authentically and defining what we want.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I will see you next week for another Midlife Discussion. Guess I need to change that name, don't I? Got to change that name. All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.